Welcome to the Frustrated CEO podcast. If you're a regular listener, you might be wondering, who is this guy? My name is Drew Harden. I'm an author, speaker, CEO, past guest, and regular listener to the Frustrated CEO podcast. I'm here today because this is a milestone episode, the 100th episode, which is epic. It's impressive. There's so many podcasts out there that start up, but they never make it to 100 episodes or maybe even 50 episodes. So it's very impressive milestone. I have Patsy, I have Patrick here. Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
Very impressive. Very
Thank
impressive.
you.
It's an honor to be back, and I'm going to grill you a little bit today. We want to see if you both are truly legit and worthy of these 100 episodes. So I want to do that, but again, like the impact this podcast has been really impressive. It's been going for years, impacted thousands and thousands of people. The growth you've had is impressive. So I want to see what you've taken away from these 100 episodes. So let's just start out. How did this podcast get started? What was the beginning of all this?
As anybody who listened in the beginning knows, there were, and we're meeting today without our third colleague, Leb Tannenbaum, who joins when he can. Joins when he can. But we were, I think, honestly, part of it was there's this exciting new medium. It's really not even new. We realized we were late to the game, but we were. Some of it was, frankly, business development. Like, how do you get your name out there? How do you show that you know what you're? How do you present yourself as an authority, as smart people? And I think where we've landed is so much different from that. In that, I think the more we've done it, the more I realize how little I know, instead of coming into it thinking how much I know and how I want to share that. We certainly have a different perspective, but man, it's been part of the fun of the journey. It's just how little we know. So I think some of those early episodes, we sound like we're trying to be too smart, too educational. They're hard to listen to. Even I can't even listen to some of those early, with myself. But it just started as a way for us to get together and talk about stuff we love, share it with people, and maybe generate some interest in what we do in the process.
No, I would add that it was a great opportunity to learn and grow. And over the years, which may be what you're getting ready to ask us, hone our foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think doing something like this can be really humbling because, you start out to share your expertise, but as you get into it, you start to learn, wow, there's a lot I actually don't know. And I know that's happened to me over the years too, as I've been on podcasts and videos and things like that. I realize there's a lot I don't know and a lot I'm trying to figure out. Okay, I went back and I took a look. Do you remember the date and the title of the very first episode?
I remember the title. I don't know that I remember the date. Was it sometime in March? I think it was March 2022, if I remember correctly. And it was Teabag Leadership, was it not?
You got it. Impressive. All right. That's very impressive. Patsy knew that too. I'm sure of it.
I do remember that title. That's one of our more unique titles.
Now tell me, 100 episodes, so many different experiences. What's the most surprising thing that's happened or you experienced or that you learned over this journey that you wouldn't have anticipated?
I've learned that when you connect with people who really care about the work they're doing, that they show up enthusiastically, authentically, they want to share, they want to learn, and they want to be beginners. So I've learned that it's just, no matter what people do or what they've achieved, if there's a commitment to ongoing growth, they show up and want to engage.
I would add a couple of thoughts. One, I kind of alluded to it already, how little you know. The older you get, the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know, actually. And so just having all of these really talented people, Drew, having you on was so fun because I learned how you create this fun organization. And that's so just all the different ways that people approach leadership, what you might think are the same concepts: leadership, building a high performance team, pulling teams together, building strategy, all these things. There are so many different ways to do it. And so I guess an unexpected outcome for me, something I wasn't expecting, is it has made me a better consultant. The clients that I have, it's made me better at my job. I feel like I have more tools in my arsenal whenever I'm working with an organization. It's like, oh, actually, here's something I learned from, this executive who had the same problem and approached it this way. So I was not expecting that, but that's been really cool. It's just made us better, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. It's like going to teach something is often the best way to learn it. And
Right.
again, you starting this to share your expertise has maybe been the best way for you to even learn more. And you're right, Patrick. I mean, there's great core leadership principles, management principles, work culture principles that are important, but there are many different ways and styles to get there. And I think sometimes maybe we forget that as leaders and we think, well, my way is the best. But there are a lot of different styles. It's just like coaching in the NFL, there's a lot of really different personality types and coaches.
Right.
And but it's not just one personality type that's successful. It can be someone who's introverted, extroverted. There's different styles to get there as long as you follow the same core servant leadership values, investing in other, caring for your team and that sort of thing.
To that analogy, it's interesting because you look at the different coaching styles, and I think this is something else that I've learned from doing this show, and it's relevant to every leader, is you can't replicate somebody else's style. You have to be, whatever you create has to be authentic to who you are, to your core values. And I think like the best coaches know their players, like whether it's on the football field or any team, they know their players and they do the hard work to figure out, how can I put each person on this team in a position to succeed? And if that means me changing my approach, changing my vision, I'm not talking about wholesale changes, but tweaking it so that you ultimately put each person in a position to be successful, show up and crush it in their seat. And when everybody's doing that, the team wins. So it's not about replicating what I've read in a book, or even honestly, frankly, what you've read in this what you've heard on this podcast. That's the beauty of having 100 episodes. You probably have at least 25 different approaches to some of the same problems, and you get to which one resonates with you, and try that one, as opposed to, well, I have to do what Drew Harden does at Blue Compass. I feel like what you've done at Blue Compass, I don't know that a lot of leaders could easily replicate. In fact, I'd go so far as to say they can't easily replicate it. But the reason you've been so successful is that's just who you are as a leader, and it aligns with you, your core values, and the team that you've assembled. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the kind words. And I totally agree. And I love the word you're saying, Patrick, authenticity. And, whenever you're unsure what to do, just be more of yourself. Authenticity. And, so we are a marketing agency at Blue Compass. And this is one of the things we're telling our clients is, in this age of AI, of, all these huge ad spends and everything, people are generally more interested in authenticity than they ever have been before. And this is one of the reasons we see the rise of platforms like TikTok and Instagram and things like that. I mean, and we see real people. Another thing that we see the rise of right now is Reddit. And Reddit isn't polished, it isn't professional, it's not a big corporation speaking, but people like that, and it's showing up more and more in Google search results because Google knows people want authenticity. Someone isn't interested if they're looking to go buy a product, makeup or something like that. They're not interested to hear what L'Oreal has to say about it. They want to go see what a real person, what an authentic person has to say about it. And so it's the same with leadership. You're right. You can't just copy what someone else did. You can get inspiration from it, which is really helpful, but you got to embrace your strengths, do what's comfortable to you, be authentic. And so one of the things we tell our team members is here is don't try to be someone else, be yourself, but be your best self. Work to be your best self, be your authentic self, but be your best self. Yeah, I love that.
Oh, I was going to say, as Patrick knows, that being your authentic self is one of my passions, and surprised how natural it would seem, and how foreign a concept it is for a lot of people. So I'm glad we're on that topic.
Yeah, I'd even say that, to tie it back to one of your first questions, I feel like in these earliest episodes in this podcast, I can't speak for my colleagues. I can speak for myself. It's kind of like there's this feeling of like, ooh, if somebody's going to tune into this, I need to be smart. I need to sound professional. I need to know what I'm talking about. And thank goodness you get a few episodes in and you just relax a little bit. Like, I feel like our authentic selves really kind of came out probably not until like episode 7, 8, 9. Those first episodes are, can't take them out of the library, but it's a good reminder of where we started and where we've ended up. It's authenticity.
And I think a lot of leaders struggle with this, Patrick, because as leaders, we want to have all the answers. We want to look smart. We want people to look up to us. We want to be respected. And I know you've talked about this before, but you don't have to have all the answers. And we tell our managers here, you don't have to have all the answers. Ask questions. Just figure out what's going on. Ask questions. If you don't know, say, I don't know. I'll figure it out. And people will respect that. And, you can get people to where they need to go if you just ask enough of the right questions. There's no problem that's particularly hard to solve if you ask enough of the right questions. So take the pressure off yourself if you're a leader. You don't have to be incredibly wise. You don't have to have all the answers. And I think a lot of us get caught up in that, though. All right. I would love to ask you, as you look back, tell me about a fail that you had on the podcast. Maybe it was a blooper, maybe it was an issue, maybe it was confusion. What's a time that something went wrong?
Well, I would say
a
couple times we've had guests, not naming any names, on where, for me at least, and it seemed like for our team from the very beginning, it's like, this is not a great fit. And for me, it felt like we're just going to have to muddle through the interview. And it was a long 40 minutes. And the energy dropped, and it felt like at least I was struggling to, so that was a fail. It has turned to our benefit in really getting clear about who our guests are and how our guests align with what we want to bring to our listeners. But there are a couple times it's like, this is going to be slogging through the mud.
I can think of we've had a few where we're all geared up and ready, and then the guest hasn't shown up, so that's been fun. And usually it's been just a calendar mistake, or somebody gets busy. And I think in all but maybe one case, we were able to bring that person back at a different time. We had one episode in particular, again, not to name names or episodes. We had one episode in particular I had very high hopes for that turned out to be a lot more of an infomercial than I think we expected. Patsy's nodding. I think she knows the one we're talking about. It was kind of disappointing. It was like, because I know if I was listening to something and it turned into an infomercial, if you change the channel where you suddenly feel like you're being sold. And so, but since then, what we've learned is we just, before every episode, I would say, hey, let's all be careful not to turn it into an infomercial, because that's the fastest way to lose an episode. And really the best way to sell any of us is just to show up and be engaging and fun and like insightful and not try to sell. I learned this somewhere and it's stuck with me. Nobody likes to be sold to, but everybody likes to buy. So let's not use our podcast to sell anybody anything. So that's probably That's probably what comes to mind, a couple of fails that we had.
I think that's fantastic. Years ago, I wrote a book about content marketing. It's something we've done here for a really, really long time. But the whole premise of content marketing, in my eyes, is instead of making someone watch or listen to something they don't want to watch or listen to, like an ad, it's giving away your expertise. Because the
Yep.
best way for someone to realize you're an expert is to show them rather than claim you're the expert. And I think that's what you're talking about there. And sometimes the best way to sell something is not to sell something, is to give away your expertise. And we have clients that will struggle with that sometimes. And they say, well, we can't give away our expertise on our website. People are going to steal it. Our competitors are going to steal it. But in marketing and in life, the more you give, the more you receive, and you get what you put out there. And we've seen such amazing results for many clients giving away their expertise, just trying to help others. And
Mhm.
people eventually, they start a following, people take notice, and they realize, these people know what they're talking about. And you see that all the time on social media now, people who are experts in their field giving away their expertise, and they start to get a real following.
You didn't ask us that question, but if you were to ask me or us what some of the most rewarding episodes have been, it would be what you were just talking about, Drew, is like the generosity of some of our guests and their willingness to teach others and to give their experience away because
Mm.
they want to help, they want to connect and help other people. That's been some of the most rewarding and sometimes some of the most surprising.
Well, I was gonna say, Drew, you said in marketing and in life, right? That's the approach, giving it away. Like the more you give, the more you receive. You could add, and in leadership, right? And that's the whole point of all of this is,
Yep.
if my approach if I took a content marketing approach to leadership, like, okay, how do I pour into my people? How do I give it away? How do I make it more about them and less about me? It's that servant leadership phrase that that model that you mentioned earlier. Like that's what endears. It's what endears in marketing. That's what endears you to customers in life. That's what endears people to you in relationships. I think that's what endears your people to you in leadership. If they know that as a leader, you make it about them and not about you. And yeah, so it's a great model for leadership too.
Absolutely. And a lot of leaders miss that. A lot of leaders, it's all about them.
Yeah.
We need more good leaders. Yeah. Okay. So while we're on the topic of leadership, I would love to hear, tell me something that you've learned from a guest when it comes to leadership. Are there any leadership lessons that really pop out at you and that made an impact on you personally? Patsy, let's start with you.
Okay. I was reflecting on this. We had a guest who used their youngest members of their workforce as their mentors. I think they call it reverse
Yes.
mentoring, Patrick. At any rate, they had a group of youngsters, actually, their youngest members of their workforce, that they were using to mentor themselves. And I thought that was such a cool idea, as we always look to mentors who know more than, or often look to mentors who know more than we do. But this person was like going down a couple of generations and using that segment of the workforce to mentor him. So I continue to get myself around 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, and because I learned so much. So I thought that was cool.
That's a fascinating approach. Absolutely.
So, gosh, a few thoughts come to mind. One, we've had futurist Ben praying on a number of times, and I think what a theme that runs through each of our conversations with him is the importance of the relationships, the importance of human interaction. Right? Just talking about the trends with AI and even through the pandemic and virtual office and just the importance of the human connection in leadership and in service delivery to your customers. That has been that's been insightful. That was really insightful. It's one of those things that you kind of know, but now you're seeing more and more importance as we move into technology and AI and stuff like that. So that's one that has stuck with me. And then the other one that I come back to, there are two others I come back to quite a bit, and I'll make it quick. One is we had Chris Sarles on a number of episodes, gosh, I don't know, 60 something. And he was a CEO who had retired already. And that whole episode was about needing a plan for the next phase of life. And I have come back to that episode with leader after leader after leader who will say, well, I don't really, it'll be easy for me to leave this and go. It's like, well, okay, what's your plan? Because we hear so often from leaders who think that it's a lot harder to let go and transition into retirement or post CEO work than you think it is. That's one. And the other one was Mark Reifenrath when he came on and talked about making an employee's first day memorable. That was such a fun, gosh, I think that was like episode 13. Talk about how long that has stuck with me. Making an employee's first day so memorable that he said, because I know that person's going to get home and their family, somebody is going to ask them, how was your first day? And I want the answer to be, that was the best first day I've ever had. And that has stuck with me too.
That gets us into company culture a little bit, which is a topic I love. And I'd like to ask the same question to both of you. And Patsy, maybe we can start with you again. But, talk to me about work culture. What's something you've learned doing this show that's impacted your view on the work culture that people experience every day?
One thing is reinforcing from leaders having a really clear direction that's aligned with their core values and communicating that consistently to their workforce. And also understanding, how do we live our values? So it goes back to one of our core foundational pieces, which is alignment, but just the simplicity and clarity of knowing direction and communicating that.
For me, I think what I would say, if I can succinctly say it, it's how there is a distinct connection between great organization culture and successful businesses. So some of the most successful leaders that we've had on this show have understood the importance of really intentionally building a great culture. And they seem to understand it. I've since, I've taken this phrase from what I've learned from those leaders is it's not culture for the sake of culture. It's culture for the sake of execution or culture for the sake of competitive advantage. So it's not, and the reason I think that's an important understanding for a leader to get is because if it's culture for the sake of culture, then you're less willing to invest in it when it might, when you might need to, or if you somehow build a great culture and you don't understand it doesn't end there, it starts there, then you have this great thing and you don't know how to leverage it. You don't know what to do with it.
The importance of, it's not a one and done. It's an organic, living entity in your organization that has to be nurtured, cared for, observed, practiced daily and throughout the whole organization. And the C-suite, the CEO, is ultimately responsible for that.
So true. And that is, one of the leader's main responsibilities, in my opinion, is the culture. And, so often leaders will get caught up in the to-do list every day and the emails, the tasks, the bottom line, the quarterly earnings, all these sort of things. And they are really important. But like you said, Patrick, I mean, great culture has a purpose. It's not just for culture's sake. And it's like oil that makes the engine of the organization run smoother and better. And I think one of the best things, that we can all do as leaders is just investing in those relationships you talked about. And good relationships, when you have good relationships in the workplace, people are more likely to go out of their way to help someone, to stay late, to give someone else a hand, to encourage someone, to ask how their day was. Relationships matter. And we miss that sometimes as leaders. It's not about necessarily just getting tasks done. And that's why at Blue Compass, one of the things we do that a lot of organizations don't do is we encourage, laughter and conversation at the beginning of meetings. We don't always get right down to business. Because it builds relationship. And does it mean, the meeting is technically less efficient at the beginning, or does it mean maybe the meeting goes a little longer? Yeah, it does. And there are business books out there that say don't do that. And I get it. But here it works for us because we want our team to have a love and appreciation for one another. We want to build those relationships. We want to laugh together. We want to have a workplace where people can tease each other in a friendly manner and no one gets upset and people enjoy it. And it's almost like a love language. And that for us has worked really well. And it's strengthened the bonds people have, and it makes people, want to stick around. We want to create a culture where everyone loves working here and no one wants to leave. And it's been a really important ingredient in our recipe, at least for us. All right. Okay. Tell me, I would love to hear from both of you. Patrick, we'll start with you this time. Tell me, what is the most common leadership fail that you see?
We see too many leaders that work in the business, not on the business. They're so busy in the details and trying to get stuff done that they don't take the time, or a lot of times don't have the skills to step back and take that more strategic view, that's where you observe culture from. That's where you align your actions with vision. So we see way too many leaders working in the business, not on the business.
Yeah, so true. So true. It's extremely difficult for me, for everyone. It's really difficult not to do it. It's funny you bring that up, Patsy, because tomorrow I'm giving a speech about that to an organization, about that very thing. So give me some pointers here, Patsy. How can a leader step out and see the big picture and think about, the whole business instead of just doing the day-to-day checklist?
Well, many leaders have started out as founders or started out in the business, and so they work their way up. So I want to just bring some compassion here. It's pretty natural that you would, as a leader, continue to work in. So I think you first have to acknowledge that working on the business takes a different set of skill sets. It takes a different perspective. I call it that knuckle from where you move from in the business to on the business. So first of all, recognize that it's a transition and you do need new skills and behaviors. You have to let go of delegating and working in the business. So you have to learn those new skills. You have to develop a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. You have to learn, what does it mean to be more of a strategic thinker? What's the importance of culture for the sake of? So there's just a number of distinctions that I think to work on the business, you've got to learn.
I think too, one of the biggest roadblocks that leaders have here is pride. And again, like you said, I think we should have compassion for leaders. When I started Blue Compass, there were two of us, and now 18 years later, we have dozens and dozens of team members. And for me, I do think pride was a roadblock because when I started out, I thought it's not going to be done right unless I'm involved. And that was my attitude. And it took me years, Patsy, to start to learn, oh, okay, maybe delegation is a good thing. And I can't have control over everything if I want this to grow. And I noticed as time went on, okay, I handed off project management. Suddenly it started to go a little better. I handed off design. Suddenly this started to go a little better. I handed off new business. That was really hard. It goes way better. And now I'm like, man, what was I doing? I wasn't following any process. I was just running around doing whatever I wanted. And this team, this business development team we have is like so disciplined. So they're following this incredible process. And now if I try to step back and do it, I'm like messing things up. So I think pride sometimes holds us back.
Thank you. I appreciate the added time to think about it. And you're right, Patsy, that was an obvious one. I think I would add, if I'm being brutally honest, I think it's avoiding, the question was biggest leadership mistakes, biggest mistake leaders make is it's avoiding addressing the issues that only the leader can address. A lot of times when we're working, when we get brought into an organization and it's, can you just make these people more accountable? And you realize accountability issues, they're not new. Some of this stuff it's systemic. It's been happening for a long time. So, but it does go back to, as Patsy was saying earlier, recognition. Most people start a business with an idea and a passion, and you're not trained on how to deal with conflict, how to have an effective performance conversation, servant leadership, so many of these things that, like, you're more technical than you are leader. And then if you're successful at that technical thing and you happen to grow it into 5, 10, 20 people, 50 people, that's where the lack of those leadership skills really start to, or you start to be exposed, and where it can become really troubling and really challenging for the people in the organization who need you as the leader to step in and resolve those issues. They don't have the authority, but they're dealing with the manifestation of those unresolved issues.
Okay, I want to ask you both. This is a question I get a lot, and it's, if you could tell your younger self, maybe your teenage self, one thing, one lesson you've learned, what would it be? People often ask me this in Q&As and things like that, and I'm like, there's so many things. It couldn't be just one thing because I didn't know anything back then. I know slightly more now, but what would that be for you? What would that be for you?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, Patsy, you go first.
I would go back to what we were talking about earlier, is know and be and embrace your authentic self. When I am really aligned with what my values and what I care about, and the gifts and contributions I want to make in the world, life sings along. It's happy. When I'm not there, it is not a pleasant place to be.
I will add, and this is something that it may sound arrogant, but so I'll clarify, I'll explain, because I coach this, I say this to almost everyone I work with. You have no idea how ridiculously dangerous you are, like how great and how equipped and how amazing you are. And I say, welcome to the club. Like, that's most of us, when we look in the mirror, we see all the mistakes, the failures, the screw ups, the regrets, the shames, the embarrassments. And that becomes the filter through which we look at ourselves. And so it's just in my own journey. Like, I would love to look back 40 years and go, you have no idea how dangerous you are. If you just get out of your own way, just own your greatness. Now, that doesn't mean you're great at everything. It means figure out what is it that you're great at. I think at this point, this is like the irony of aging. You become more aware of what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and you have less time to do anything with it. So it's boy, wouldn't it be nice to know that way back in the beginning? Just lean into this and stop trying to be these things, because you don't have to. This is how I think I've summarized it these days, is to have, to live a life of purpose. You don't have to be anything more than you already are, but you damn well not be anything less. That's it. Don't leave any tools in the toolbox. Whatever you got, use them. You said be your best self. I think maybe it's a variation of what you said earlier. Just be yourself, but be your best self. That's it.
Yeah, what great advice. I love it. I would say, to me, the thing I would tell my younger self is, you become what you think about. You become what you think about. And as leaders, there's so many problems, so many struggles, and it's very, very easy and natural for the human mind to go to the negative, to think about, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, how can we make payroll? Oh, what if this happens? What if this person leaves? And for years, when I ran this business, I would always think, when is this all going to fall apart? When is it? I know eventually it's going to. I don't know when. And I finally realized, I'm not playing to win. I'm playing not to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And okay. And so I resolved to, if this place ever did fall apart and go bankrupt, I resolved to only be thankful and grateful if that happens, because I've learned so much here and it's been such a blessing. And when I accepted the worst case scenario and realized what I thought mattered, suddenly I started to have less stress. So I think one thing a lot of leaders and people don't don't think about is just because a negative thought, just because a thought enters your mind doesn't mean it's reality, and it doesn't mean you need to entertain it.
Mm-hmm.
It You might not be able to control that it jumped into your head, but you can control if you dwell on it or not. And when I realized that, that really, really helped me. And so a lot of times, if I'll have a negative thought pop in my mind, hey, this place is going to fall apart. Hey, we're not, having the success we need to have. I'm really not a great leader. Can I ever get us to the next level? You know, I'll say, thanks, mind. Thanks for throwing me that thought. I realize that I am not my mind. We are not our minds. That's just a part of us. And our minds is going to throw us lousy thoughts that are not useful a lot of the time. And so to me, when I recognized that and I started to be purposeful, it takes work, but purposeful about not dwelling on what could go wrong, but think a little bit more about what could go right. And that really, really helped me. I would love to tell my teenage self that.
I appreciate you telling my 54-year-old self that. That's good. That's actually helpful.
Yeah. Well, we're all very susceptible to it, whether we want to be or not, I think. Tell me this, looking forward. So we did 100 episodes. I mean, it's incredible that you made it this far and that you've made the impact that you've had with so many leaders. Tell me about the next 100 episodes. I mean, what's your vision? What would you like to see happen in the next 100 episodes? Where do you go from here?
Well, this is why I think we're probably going to have you on for the third time as our guest. I would love to help our listeners put their visions in practice. So I think there's, in our chaotic world, the more we can stay clear and focused on what really matters and how we do that in our chaotic worlds, I would like to see us springboard into that arena.
Well, for me, my first hope is that they don't kick me off this show, because there's always a possibility my co-hosts can get smart and toss me. But I actually, in seriousness, I think about like musicians, bands that have stuck around for decades, like whether it's U2 or the Rolling Stones or I mean, like bands that have really been around for a long time. And you look at how often in that journey they reinvented themselves, right? And you can tie it back to business. There are how many businesses that have been around for a long time. You stay true to the core values, but you reinvent yourself because that's how you stay relevant. That's how you innovate. And then there are plenty of companies, you look at like Kodak, that didn't do that and was suddenly out of business and then had to come back and, or Blockbuster, there are those cautionary tales as well. So for me, when I think about the next 100 episodes, and we've been talking about this off air lately, is how do we reinvent ourselves? How do we not get so rooted in what we've always done? Let's still honor our core values, but how do we reinvent ourselves and show up differently to stay relevant and maybe uncover something that we haven't figured out yet? That's, I don't have any answers for that. I have more questions, but I think when you start asking the questions, you then open yourself up to just looking at it differently. You open yourself up to the possible answers, and that alone that's the first step, is just asking the questions. What if we stop doing this and start doing that?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a leadership lesson in that too. When you're comfortable, it feels really nice. But if you don't push yourself, you're not going to reinvent yourself. You're not going to get to the next level. You're not going to get growth and more results and things like that. So leadership lesson in everything.
Yeah, that's right. It's true. It really is true.
Yeah, I would add that I think it's taken us a few, if not more, episodes to really get clear about what our unique value proposition is. So the foundation we stand on. And as we've done that, I could see the next 100 episodes continuing to build on that, but in a really clear, succinct way.
Yeah. All right. Before I close this out, anything to leave us with?
The only thing I want to say, Drew, thank you. Thank you for we wanted to do a different episode. Thank you for being willing to come back and hijack our show and put us on the hot seat. And as Patsy said, we'll have to have you back a third time because there's still so much more from our first conversation that we didn't get to. And this was more celebrating our 100th show. But also thank you to the people who have grown with us. That we've had people who have been listening from the very beginning, and it's always nice to know that people like what you're doing and that they find value in it. So that's my closing thoughts. Patsy, what would you say?
I would say that as we've been talking about, it is about connection and relationships and the human condition. And the more we've done that and found people, that we align with and want to connect with, then I think this has gotten richer, more valuable, and as Patrick said, and you do, Drew, in your work, more fun and more engaging.
Well, you're welcome. I'm glad that you could find the time to be on my incredible show here. It's an honor to have you. Thanks for having me also on the show. If you're not listening to the Frustrated CEO, like, you're missing out. If you're a leader, that what you share is fantastic. And, as I've said to you before, there's a lot of podcasts out there that just ask questions and they don't really care so much about the answers. And that is not this podcast. And I love the authenticity here that is on this podcast. And that's why I tune in, and that's why I'm honored to be on it. So thank you so much. Tell me, where can we find you, Patsy?
You can find me at Patsy at the Frustrated CEO. And you can also find me, and you can find me at the Lions Group Consulting.com.
Patrick, what about you?
Yeah, same. So thank you for asking. So you can always email me at patrick@thefrustratedceo.com, or as our business, patrick@thelionsgroupconsulting.com. You can find, that's our website, thelionsgroupconsulting.com, or on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn as well, just like Patsy said. So find us, connect, and if you have an inspiring story or an interesting guest, then let us know, because you've heard where we want to go for the next 100 episodes. If you fit into that and want to be part of that, I'd love to meet you.
And, if you're interested in really upgrading your leadership, your culture, that sort of thing, I know one of your clients, and they are very pleased with the results that you've been able to deliver for them. So
Thank you.
Forgive me for turning it into a commercial, but you know what you're doing, and I love it. So keep up the great work.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
Yes, we both do.
All right. Hey, like, subscribe, and thank you so much again. And we'll talk to you next time. Thank you.